Shishimar, Divine Grace, Founder of ISKCON, Abhay Charanaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Their Most Merciful Lordship, Shri Shri Radhakandavari Ki Jai, Shri Jagannath, Shri Baladev Mai Subhadra Ki Jai, Shri Nataji, Shri Balagopal Ki Jai, Shri Shri Gaurnitai Ki Jai, Nitai Go Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the Lord and Spirit of Shri Shri Guru, Shri Gauranga, Krishna Prana, Krishna Bhakti, on the one hand, it is the greatest privilege to be able to have the opportunity to express our feelings that we have towards Srila Prabhupada's contribution to the world. And at the point he chose to leave, that Krishna, he was so dear to Krishna, having fulfilled the wishes of his Guru, which is what makes the disciple glorious, and which is what pleases Krishna, because all devotees have a fight in life to defend their beliefs in God, their beliefs, and then what to speak, their beliefs in Krishna. But of all the millions and millions of devotees there are now in the world serving Krishna consciousness, through the shelter of the ISKCON movement, are doing that by the grace and the instructions of Srila Prabhupada's obedience to his Guru, proving the significant strength of obedience to the Guru in the energy of Krishna as well, to empower now all the souls that are being connected to Krishna consciousness, being free, totally liberated. This morning I got realization about Lord Brahma, which I had previously to some extent, but I know this would not be possible except for Srila Prabhupada's contribution to the world. Krishna. We're studying from Srimad Bhagavatam, so we have to give class. But we know that without Srila Prabhupada having made the contribution he had, I know for myself, my limited understanding of Krishna did not give me full enough understanding through Christianity to allow me to understand the more intricate details of love of God than is revealed as far as I've seen in any other literature I've ever studied in the world. And it is this force, this power of love of God that is so powerful to be able to transform the entire planet into a heavenly planet, in fact. And it is the prophecies of all the ancients, all the ancient writings of the masters of old, spoken of by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, that speak of the coming age that will be the golden age, in which knowledge of God will cover the land like waters cover the oceans. So there will be a healing in the earth, brought about by this very knowledge that Srila Prabhupada, it will, by its nature, superseding the valuable morality of mundane human minds, and opening up to the soul the reality of transcendence that can be experienced here in this life. And this giving of this Maha Mantra of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. To the devotee, such a constant experience, and thereby making it possible to forget the significant value of the effect of this chanting. It gives us total freedom from the effects of karma, birth, death, old age, and disease. And now by the life of one man, faithful to his Guru, how many millions are finding now this freedom from the clutches of Maya, the illusory potency that keeps us bound to the material energy that we are using to try and find pleasure with. The Srila Prabhupada so faithfully brings the understanding in his books that our pursuit for this pleasure we're looking to experience by manipulating the material world is a useless pursuit for that which does not provide the happiness we are looking for and hoping to find. So as a remedy to that disease which men and women across the world do not, for the most part, realize they are suffering from, the disease of birth, death, and old age. That's the disease. And this Maha Mantra is the means of becoming free from that disease, being bound to this illusion that we are going to find happiness here, other than the means being given to know the soul, the self. If we're going out trying to find happiness elsewhere, then we become dependent on something other than what we are. But that is not the nature of the self. The self is self-satisfied, is self-fulfilled by the substance that's made. It takes on the nature of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. And so all the living entities that are in the spiritual world are also of the same nature, so that any relation to them whatsoever produces such an experience of the energy of Krishna, this that we are hoping to be engaged in, this bhakti. It is itself the same nature as the soul. It is Satchidananda also. And that's why devotees get attached to their service, because they start to taste what the experience of the eternal nature of the substance of the soul and its engagement in Krishna's service is what it is. Its natural state of being. It's like we can't take our skin off of our bodies and hope to continue to exist. But like bhakti is the substance of the soul. Substance of the soul is so much a part of the soul. The soul, it doesn't separate in the spiritual world. And I'm still in question in the spiritual world if there's super soul, because it would seem to me there's constant engagement with Krishna, which brings the soul to the spiritual world. Here's the realization I got about Lord Brahma. It's Lord Brahma, coming from that topmost place that he sits in this universe. He's the firstborn, and even in control over Lord Indra. He's above Lord Indra's position, who is himself the controller of the heavenly planets, topmost heavenly planets. But that form, he manifests himself here as Namacharya Haridas Thakur. He reveals how much of his day he spends chanting. And with only one mouth now, he reveals that. So he's chanting like 180 rounds or something. Just incredible. Which means he's spending 23 to 20 plus hours a day chanting. And here's the thing. In his post as Brahma, he has 4 heads. And as such, each is said to be chanting constantly. Now I can understand why Brahma doesn't want any worshippers. If you worship someone, you're going to be asking them questions. Huh? You pray to somebody, you believe them to be God, you're going to have questions for them. He doesn't want to be interrupted. His position requires that he not be interrupted as well. So see if we can approach Grandfather Bhishma with that respect. Then just like when a devotee's chanting, we won't interrupt them like I am so bad at committing the offense of. I try to limit it to those times that are really significantly important. But with Lord Brahma, there's no choice. All four heads are being used in chanting mantras. In this way, he's giving Veda through his moment. And through those spoken words of the Vedas, control is there. His mind is fully controlled. Can you imagine? We have one mind capable of conjuring constantly ideas, right? But Brahma, as one soul, is having... What's going on? Brahma is having four heads, which suggests he's having four minds that have the ability to create thought and perceptions and realizations. Krishna gave him that by desire that he had, and qualification. It says that he had been born in Vedic culture 100 times. 100 times was the qualification. And he is situated as the Brahma of the smallest universe among all the universes. So imagine how it is the deep-rooted desire for these souls who are governing universes with millions of heads. And what would all those heads be chanting? And all those minds be meditating upon? See, this is evidence as well that Krishna rewards the soul with those functions that pleases Krishna and gives the soul the ability to perform functions in service that he wouldn't otherwise even develop a desire to have. You want four heads for it. It would be like out of place, right? But he wanted four tongues to be able to constantly chant and glorify Krishna. And so, as much as one would be expected to be able to physically be possible to chant with one tongue, Lord Brahma was doing that in the form of Haridas Thakur. And today, in remembrance of Srila Prabhupada, we can know that this knowledge of that constant chanting is being given to us. Srila Prabhupada was chanting 64 rounds in Vrindavan. I was given the tremendous privilege of being able to visit with Mahanidhi Swami when he was serving Srila Prabhupada's Bhajan Kutir in Vrindavan, where he taught me how to make halava. See such dear devotees. He grew up in our neighborhood here in Dearborn, just a few miles away, which I also grew up in Dearborn. Very greatly exalted soul. He wrote the book Gayatri, Mahanidhi Swami. Very advanced soul in Krishna consciousness. And in his later years, turned towards finding a companion that I suspect now he's living with, and due to his sincerity, he stepped out of ISKCON's jurisdiction because he doesn't feel as though now he's living up to what he was a Swami, right? But he's acting as a truthful, honest Swami, at least. But going back to married life now, I don't know his own pursuits. the difference between finding someone that helps you in Krishna consciousness and then marrying for the sake of, joyous sensual pleasure or whatever. But from all of his life that he's been revealing, his ability to stay in Krishna consciousness, I still look at Mahanidi Swami, a very advanced soul. But turning from a sannyasi back to married life is described in the scriptures as the same as a dog returning to its vomit. If you've ever seen a dog vomit, they immediately go back to it after it is lick it up. It's an instinct bred in them due to the fact that in the wild, in the wild, food to animals is the instinct to live. And it is put in them for survival. But so in that way, it's kind of like inbred. Kind of like we were talking about, saying about the soul having the qualities of bhakti. And bhakti having the qualities of the soul. It's inbred, it's like part of them. So that activity that we engage in, just like Karna, being born with a shield, he was born with that shield. It was predetermined and known that shield would be there to protect him in a battle. He was born to fight, born to kill, but then requested of his guru to remove it. Otherwise, he would have been the victor in the battle, because he was rightly the eldest of the Pandavas. He was the firstborn, sent by his mother up the river to be trained up by a cobbler, I think it was, shoemaker, right? But see, this from our past that develops about Krishna consciousness, we pick up in our next life where we left off. As would be normal to those who are taking part in various activities in the world, as long as they don't cause suffering to other living entities, and they don't kill just to eat. And they would find a place similar to the earth where they could engage more perfectly their senses in that service they're performing. But in Krishna consciousness, when we do that, because we're engaging not in the activities that people of the nation of India perform, or not the people of the nation of China perform, or Russia, or anywhere else, but we're the people of Vaikuntha, what the people of Vaikuntha are doing in service to Krishna, Vaikuntha being that eternal realm. So that we, in that body, have functions capable of performing that we can't hear yet. And which to perform perfectly would require, just like Brahma, to sit in his post, requires that kind of body he has. And Krishna put him there, empowering him according to the time and circumstance, according to the time and position he was capable of holding, and giving him a universe the size he was qualified to hold. So similarly with us, we gear our lives towards developing pure love for Krishna. We can be sure that at the end of this life, he will give us that position which is most geared towards that which we have developed. And in our abilities and our capabilities, then Krishna will be with us there. Srila Prabhupada says, yes, if you don't make it to Vaikuntha, at least you will take birth in an elevated Vaishnava family. See, that's the difference between a karmi giving a penny, they get a human birth. But to be born in a Vaishnava family is described by the Vedas as being the most elevated position, because then one comes to be trained up from childhood in that self-realization that Krishna consciousness gives, which is what Brahminical culture is meant to be established as. We see there are gurus in India who are of a nature to carry out the functions of marrying, performing a marriage for people. There are gurus who perform the function of giving class from Bhagavatam. There are gurus who initiate and take disciples. There are gurus who play the part of those who have given initiation, diksha, and they play the part of shiksha, while the guru cannot be visited, or in the place of guru, while the disciple is performing his functions. He can't always be where the guru is. So this is a function association takes. And as devotees mature with each other, they give each other the function of guru to each other, in effect. And they ask each other for advice. That's what friendship means as well. See, in the material world, all the positions that are looked at by devotees as that which they take in a society of established Vaishnavas, the functions are there, but without transcendence and without full knowledge of its applicability to the entirety of society. So there may be many organizations that are functioning in the world, fulfilling that need in human nature to have, quote unquote, association with other human beings. They have like the Lions Club. They have clubs centered around political beliefs. They have groups for people that just reach a certain age, old age clubs, and these kinds of things. It is a longing for the soul to have association with other like-minded souls. But in the case of those who are in the society, like-mindedness means they both reach the same age. That's pretty much what is meant by that. And people don't make their life choices based on whether God has anything to do with their communal living or not. As long as it's comfortable, as long as it's affordable, then they're happy. And so this is why people at the end of life, at the last stages of their life, they're not finding satisfaction. Srila Prabhupada, from the recorded video we have, his words speaking, Krishna is controlling everything is moving by the power of Krishna. So if we, just like Krishna told Arjuna, remember me when I'm playing the flute, then we have Srila Prabhupada's example. Remember Krishna is in control of everything. Yeah. So, maybe now, he's protecting us from what kind of, we'd be stuck in such ecstasy constantly, we wouldn't be able to do anything if we were experiencing the kind of ecstasy we would if we knew the appreciation we should be having for Krishna restoring us to that original place with him, with that original, that eternal place we will have with him that will be the sweetest constant experience of love. And Krishna is going to give us all that back again. Return us to that state, consciousness, to know what love is in its purest form. And that means to know Krishna's love for us, but we can't contain it right now. Lord Chaitanya couldn't contain it. Have you read yet? What happened to Lord Chaitanya in the temple? Before he merged into the deity of Lord Jagannath, he had ecstatic symptoms in the temple that he lost all control of his senses. The love was so overpowering, overwhelming for God himself. But this was a fulfillment. Srimati Radharani had to reveal to Krishna what she felt for him in separation when he went to the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Now I've learned that Krishna was 125 years old in the battle. I don't know how old he was when he left Vrindavan. Do you know how old he was when he went to them?
16.
60.
16.
16. That sounds about right, doesn't it?
16 or 18.
See, we're being told as well, the length of that battle was 18 days. They may have been demigod days. 18 would have been 18 years. 18 years. But even that, 16 and 18 is only 34. Where'd the 125 years come? Well, where did they go? I'm going to have to look that up. I'm not sure about that. Don't you have knowledge as well that Krishna was 125 on the battlefield?
Yeah, so he was ruling the kingdoms, marrying a lot of Rukmini.
16,000 wives.
Yeah, and he was fighting other kind of battles, making lessons, making...
I mean, even just 108 wives, because all those wives, I think it was done in one ceremony, like the 16,000 in prison. But, well, he kidnapped all of those Mataji's in one sweep, I think, even. Because of Krishna's activities are just so beyond any thoughts we could conjure in our minds.
He married 8.
Yeah, but see, the way we think in our minds, 125 years is a long time. The way Krishna thinks in his mind is like a snap of the fingers. So, there may have been a lot of stuff being prepared in that time for the battle. And this whole thing was leading up. Can you imagine? All the lives of these participants in that battle, all leading up to the battle, with Krishna in knowledge of all of it. Just amazing. And if people can't appreciate the value that has, just put aside the thought of Krishna as being God, but just the value it adds to this society in and of itself, by itself, to the moral principles contained in it for governing society, by which society can be governed, and it has been proven as that which was governed by Lord Ram and Ayodhya and Lord Krishna and Dwarka. So, this is the aim of human life. By developing pure love of God, then automatically the environment is creating such a set of circumstances in which to be born here becomes a reward. It would be a reward to be born here. under the conditions of such a yuga, which will be returned, in which we are aiming towards establishing. That's why putting Krishna consciousness into effect can bring into experience what we're thinking is primitive. With all these primitive weaponry and all like this. Because what Srila Prabhupada describes as simple life is not simple life because it's primitive. It's simple life in one way because, number one, it removes us from the effects of sinful activity. So in that way, it's very freeing for the here and now. But then in another way, it has the eternal effect that goes beyond this world. It cannot be recognized by anyone who is themselves bound by this world. So they can't know when you're walking down the street that you're a liberated soul just by looking at you. Unless Krishna gives them that ability. And without that ability to see you as such, they could walk right by and miss an ability as an ambassador that you are to Krishna consciousness. They miss out the opportunity of a lifetime. You, having this knowledge of Krishna now, makes you one of the most important, one of the most valuable souls walking in society. I don't want to tickle your ears, but it's just a fact. Because you having come in contact with the teachings Krishna reveals in the Bhagavad Gita makes you, as Krishna says, the top 2%. They have amongst motorcycle gangs, they have a little patch that says they're a 2%er. That means that they're tougher than 98%, or they're meaner, or they're more criminal-like than 98% of the rest of the population. But devotees' 2% is that they're better, they're purer, because they're keeping regulative principles, they have a lifestyle that enables them to qualify themselves as such, simply by the activities they're engaging in. People are qualifying themselves by the color of their skin, for the knowledge of what languages they can speak, by how much they've studied histories of the mundane, present-day nations of the world. But having true spiritual knowledge that is of such an eternal nature is unlike any other knowledge that there is, and it gives itself full knowledge of the nature of the soul, is made of it. Now they have a saying, the people who speak nonsense, that they're full of it. Devotees are made of it, but they're made of knowledge, the substance, Satchidananda. They're also full of it. They're full of Satchidananda. Full of Chit, knowledge, which is knowledge, and Ananda, which is bliss. Even the sound of that in the English language, because the English language is so mixed up. And we are formulating, by every nation in the world, formulating, conceptualizing with their minds in the present language they are using. The sounds they are creating does not exist in the spiritual realm as having any significance whatsoever. We're living in a made-up world, an imaginary world, you might say. That people of their imaginations, human beings, have fashioned societies according to their designs. They've gained power over the material energy, and thereby enabling themselves to gain positions of so-called authority to regulate society according to their designs. But if those designs are designed according to Krishna, according to the regulative principles of God, then they can bring the participants of that society into a liberated state of consciousness. But otherwise, it's going to be binding itself by promoting the continuance or the furtherance of technological advancement without spiritual advancement. Not that we don't use everything in Krishna's purpose, but when we come to find out its application in Krishna consciousness, it becomes simplified, not more complicated. The reason all these things are being done for the most part in the world, taxes, insurance, all these charges human beings are having to pay out of their pockets because of crime. You go to the store, it used to be like 10% of what you were paying for was the fact that they had to pay them, take out of their own pockets what people were stealing from the store, right? I'm sure that 10% has gone way up now. California, they were allowing thieves to come into stores, and they would come in and just take whatever they wanted, fill it up as much as they could. Police had no ability to control anything. That was just the previous house, the previous, Democratic Party that had control. And even the ones that do have a little more moralistic perspectives, they're still believing this slaughter of the animal, and especially the eating of the cow, is the highest stature to be in society. If you're eating steak every day, that means you're totally successful. And so they have no idea for the kinds of foods they're even supposed to be eating. So then what are they teaching their children if they don't know themselves how to get free? There's no way for a person to teach someone something they don't themselves know. Will it be required of them? Eventually. We have to come to the level of human being that finally does seek God. But until that point, boy, people are on the verge of really dire suffering. Those planetary systems that were created purposely for suffering, we can read about in Bhagavatam. Not a place we want to go at all. There's no relief from the sufferings there. Our bodies have the ability to end if they're put through such severe pain and suffering. There are bodies in the hellish planets that are made specifically to suffer pain and suffering that goes beyond what would normally cause death on this planet without the ability to be relieved by death. And this is where mercy comes in from the death sentence. The person who suffers capital punishment will have less suffering to do when they do meet Yamaraj. And most people who are in this cycle of being American citizens, who have the right to do whatever the hell they want to do, say whatever they want, do whatever they want, believe whatever they want, and get the result of whatever they will, unknowingly. Because if you ask them how to get out of the cycle of birth, 90% of the people on the street, they don't even know what you're talking about. What are you talking about? Liberation? What is liberation? I don't know. Free from communism. That's what liberation is to them. They're not free from communism, free from tyranny, but some king to overruling the planet. That's what liberation means to the modern day mind. And so there's no concept We have to be the ones to bring into their awareness the very kinds of subject matter they should be thinking about. That's what Bhagavad Gita does. You read Bhagavad Gita, you see, wow, Arjuna's asking questions most people don't ask. But when it's asked, they say, oh my God, wow, yeah, that is a good question, you know. What is life for? What is the purpose of life? What is pleasing to God? What kind of sacrifices should we be indulging ourselves in? All this being explained by Krishna. And how do we develop pure love for God? That's the question we all have to answer and then act accordingly. I've come to the conclusion that taking the advice of the spiritual master, following his instructions, and following the instructions, precepts of the forefathers, like Narada Muni, Lord Brahma, who have come to give us the instructions on how they got back. See Brahma in the form of Namacharya. I'm going to have to look this up because, see, what he did, what Krishna did for Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he revealed to him this form of Sadbhuja, which is a form, I'm sure, that is in the spiritual world. And as revealing that to him, he reveals the nature of the spiritual world. Every single planet in the spiritual world is as big as our universe. Wait a minute, no. No, they're bigger. They're bigger than our universes are, every single planet. Because remember, in the spiritual world, see, even here in the material universe, there are living beings living on the inner surface of the universe that are big enough to upset the entire planet. And if that's so, they can interrupt entire planetary systems. And this is being revealed to us in the fact that we're being visited by aliens during that time, but that those who are being given positions of authority within the universe are governing planetary systems, Satyaloka, Brahmaloka, is governing that in the form of ruling the whole universe. But in the spiritual realm, and that's all situated on the place that has less the size of a bird, like a frog, on a petal, on a rose petal, or a carnation, or a lotus flower. The whole has the size of that way on the outskirts of the swamps of town. That's what the material universe is. But in that spiritual realm, every one of those planets, being larger than every one of our universes, are inhabited by a different incarnation. And remember now, this is unlimited. This is unlimited. Our universe is contained within a covering. The spiritual world doesn't have such covering that I know of. It's not described as having such covering. So now we're entering into unlimitedness. That's the nature of eternalness as well. It can't be completely conceived of by the mind. As much as we would try to stuff that eternity into it, it doesn't fit into these mortal bodies, the minds, even of them. That is so grand a place, so great and huge a place, it can't fit into the mind. This is the glory of Saturday morning, hearing the sound of the universe. One of the sounds, thank heaven, there's only one of the sounds of the universe. You got any comments, any questions? Hopefully that sound will get into there and they'll know what I'm talking about. Say one of the sounds of the universe. Any comments? Any questions? I hope I'm not boring. John. It's so wonderful. See, on the one hand, Srila Prabhupada's leaving was returning him back where he came from, to Krishna. As he said, there was never a time he doesn't remember that, he couldn't remember there not being Krishna in his mind, in his heart, in his child, and everything. And he was doing Radhyatra 5 years old. He was holding Radhyatra. So, on the one hand, it's most glorious day. And he revealed to his disciples what mentality to have at that time of leaving. Revealing a true conquering with a true honest life. Performing such truthfulness in his life that he could change the events of the whole world in the future. The whole world can be transformed now by Srila Prabhupada living up to his Guru's instructions and giving instructions that the minds of the population of the whole world can be transformed into them being able to see themselves eternally situated in love of God. Yeah. Srila Prabhupada did that for us. Yeah. Thank you, Srila Prabhupada. Thank you, Srila Prabhupada. We can never thank him enough. And in effect, because every guru now that is connecting us to Srila Prabhupada. Glorious extension of the parampara, the mercy and love, all the love God has for mankind being openly distributed now to any class of people, old or young. This class, Sudra class, there is only one class. We're all born Sudras. And then what happens, even though people gain the ability mechanically to be able to perform functions that would otherwise be performed by Brahmins or Kshatriyas, because they have no spiritual connection, it's as though they're all performing Sudra work. It's just to make the society run smoothly and keep them from otherwise dying more rapidly than they would if certain precautions weren't made for death. But you got to bury yourself in this society if you're going to die. And there is no if. When you die, before you die, you have to pay for your burial expenses. Means you're going to bury yourself. You might as well take out the shovel and dig the hole yourself. It's cheaper. Buy a box. See, Christians are saying reincarnation is sinful. You burn the body that God gave you to use as a function here. But what function is it doing? It's sitting as a bag of bones. And you're not doing any function either. Even feeding the worms is better. If, in fact, those bones are sacred by your having performed functional devotional activities, then the worm gets tremendous benefit by eating that. There's a saying in Chaitanya Leela, again, the devotee's body is being eaten up by worms, and he won't even take the worms off because he doesn't want to disturb their meal. So there's ways of seeing life, of transcendence, that are totally foreign to the mundane mind. And only a devotee can pick these things up as advanced spiritual rasas and leelas of the Krishna. Otherwise, you approach these things, the mundane mind, you think these people are crazy. You know, Lord Chaitanya can't even control his bodily senses. But it's because of the power and love of God. People not knowing that, realizing that Krishna himself is a revealing, a potency in the chanting of these names that will not be experienced by any other involvement of the physical body in any other activity. And it is the way to know love of God. So it is the way to really fulfill. And the fact that we are being given this knowledge is showing to us that God has himself, in some way, favored us, be giving us this very personal knowledge that to him is confidential. If it is confidential to God, then how can we know the meaning of confidential? It really means something significant that he would only give to his friends, isn't it? You don't tell just anybody you meet the first time in the day all the confidential information about your life, about your activities, about the things that you think is most favorite to you. You don't do that. But Krishna is doing that to us. He's making us out to be his friend also. And that's how he's giving us this knowledge as such an act to show us how much he wants us to come back to him. That's what it's all about, getting us back to Krishna and remembering him through the day in every way we can. We have the greatest opportunity these human bodies have to offer by being able to engage in this service at will. Wow. When I came, you couldn't do that. You were given instructions what to do, what your service was. There was a devotee that came here, very studied, philosophical devotee. And he was sent out on book distribution. So he felt he was more qualified than that. And he wanted to go write the books. He wanted to, go to the science part, the Bhaktivedanta Cultural Center there in LA with Sadaputa and then the other doctor. And so he went there by request. When he got there, they put him on book distribution. And he sent the letter back to us, laughing about it. You see, it was a breaking down of what he had, because by the association he got from these devotees, he came to realize the value of simply the distribution of these books in any way you can to connect someone to these books, to the knowledge in these books. You're setting them free from their prisons that they don't even know. The thing, they don't know they're in prison. They're bound by the demands of their body. They're living for their body. Krishna consciousness frees us from that. You don't worry about what you're going to eat today or tomorrow, do you? Is it going to be there? You don't have to worry about the rent today, tomorrow, do you? You have to buy insurance for somebody. You got to go pay your monthly car payment. No. Not a worry in the world, isn't it? And that's how devotees live free from the effects. This is why you talk to devotees and you see they're always saying, gosh, you haven't aged at all. Well, yeah, I don't fill my mind with the worries that everybody else is filling their minds with. You don't have to go through that kind of suffering. And see, that's what Krishna consciousness, the ISKCON movement, was set up to be able to do to anyone that cared enough about God, to knowing about God, that God was bending over backwards to make a way to facilitate you to be able to know as much about him as we can. And that was what this ISKCON movement was set up. Free us totally from even the bonds that society is setting upon the requirements of its participants, because you got to pay taxes if you live in society. You got to know certain things that they require that Krishna doesn't require. So You don't have to know how to drive a car. Don't have to know how to read. Although it's very advantageous, especially in this age. Lord Chaitanya, a devotee had the book upside down. The tears were flowing from his eyes. He was looking at a picture, I believe it was, but even upside down, Lord Chaitanya said he got the message, you know.
Krishna and Arjuna.
Yeah.
Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah. So, this is what it is. It's spreading love of God. And whatever form that can take in us. Because Krishna, being the nature he is that nature in us. And the only way that nature will come out of us is by surrendering our will to Krishna and saying, Krishna, you take over. I'm your surrendered servant. And that's why when we read, the other day I was thinking, what would be the best prayer to make? In my mind I was thinking, say, wow, I would like to be able to persuade anyone of Krishna consciousness, right? But then I realized in my mind, I could be illusioned about things. I might be able to persuade somebody of something that's not necessarily true. So then I took back and thought, well, what would be a prayer then? And then I realized being engaged in devotional service is the best prayer you can make, you know? So we're being given this as a prayer. Krishna, Hare Krishna mantra, as a prayer, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. But at the same time, in our minds, we're thinking, Krishna, please engage me in your service. And by that prayer, then, automatically everything is fixed. Everything is pure. Because if we're engaging the body, mind, senses, strength, everything that we have in Krishna's service, then we are assured Krishna is going to manifest through us the ability that he is in us. This is a statement in the Bible, God in us, the hope of glory. Because what thing God is going to do as a whole on the planet, by our little deeds here and there every day, we're taking part in what that will eventually become. And this whole planet's going to become a heavenly planet, directed by laws of God, and lived and experienced by people who love God and who want nothing else but love of God. And that's what the movement is. That's what the movement was made by. That's what Srila Prabhupada's gift to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta by his obedience to his spiritual master is, continues to be. Because that sacrifice that Srila Prabhupada gave in surrender to Krishna now still affecting us, even though his physical body is left. So in effect, just by that, Srila Prabhupada is still engaged in devotional service. So we too, same way. After we leave, something we've done to affect someone else. If we've distributed these books, you've affected somebody else's life. That book might sit there on their shelf for a year, 2 years sometimes. Devotees have been made and come to the Krishna conscious movement explaining how they took the book out of just a feeling, giving a contribution, but then later picked it up and found Krishna in the book. Sorry I'm taking so long. Srila Prabhupada's leaving this planet and joining with Krishna, rejoining again with Krishna's day to talk about, day to spread the news about. Any comments, any questions, any realizations? Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.